everyone. Welcome back to For the Girls. We have such an exciting episode for you all today. One thing we've been really fascinated by for years is what it actually takes to train and develop an F1 driver. And today is the day you all and us will get our answers. We're so excited to welcome Bradley Scanes to the podcast. Bradley is a human performance coach. He was Max Verstappen's trainer for the past 4 years. So Bradley helped Max and Red Bull to 3 consecutive World Drivers' Championships. This involved Bradley taking about 370 flights around the world while he traveled with Max and Red Bull on the road. Bradley also consults with the British gymnastics team and is a team member at Elite Formula and Physio and Training. So welcome, Bradley. We're so excited to have you.
Wow, that sounds pretty cool hearing all that back. But thank you for having me, and love the concept of what you guys are doing. So no, thank you for having me.
We're so excited to chat. We're going to dive into all your background, but first, we want to hear, what was your day in the life like as Max's trainer while you were on the road for a Grand Prix? I mean, I imagine there's not a typical day, but if you had to kind of describe one, would love to hear that.
Yeah, you're right. There isn't really a typical day because you go through different phases in the week, whereas we might be at home in Monaco or we might be on the road for a Grand Prix weekend. So with a Grand Prix weekend, the days are then very different. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday are completely different also, if you think of a day in the life. So I guess we would arrive at the track on Thursday, and for me, that would be a setup day. So, I'd set up all the kit, set up our space, our room, area in the garage, liaise with all the members of the team. So catering staff, make sure all the food is locked in, kind of our meal plan for the entire weekend with timings and so on and so forth. Chat with the engineers, the mechanics, just kind of make sure everything is ready to go from our side, and then we kind of get into the sort of the real weekend as such, the sort of Friday, Saturday, Sunday when we hit track. And I guess the key components that are within each weekend, I'd drive Max into the track. We'd arrive, we would have our first meal, breakfast, or depending on whatever time zone or time we're racing, it might be a lunch. We'd probably do maybe a short period of physio work, depending on how he's feeling in that moment, whether there's any aches, pains, niggles, areas of tightness. Sometimes we wouldn't do that at all. And then it'd be a case of he'd go off and do his media marketing stuff or his engineering stuff, and I'd prepare all the kit and the warm-up kit ready to go for first session. Then we'd warm up, and then I'd be in the garage for the session. And then in between, it's all about kind of rehydrate and get some nutrition in, maybe a protein shake, maybe some food, again, depending on timings of where we are. And then kind of repeat for session 2 and also for qualifying and the race. So yeah, it's I think the race weekends are a bit more of like the simple stuff when it comes to kind of the performance coaches arena. It's more about being, really good logistically and kind of having that the systems in place to do everything the same each weekend for 23 race weekends.
Yeah, it sounds like you really had a good system on lock. And I think one thing that you always think about with F1 is that there's so much more beyond just the traditional like conditioning, cardiovascular strength. You have to think about jet lag, extreme heat, like extreme neck strength, all of those different things. So to you, what are some of the really non-traditional aspects of training an F1 driver?
Yeah, for sure. I think the biggest non-traditional thing for training an F1 driver is it's unique that you have to train everywhere. It's, you have to train your lower limb because you've got forces on the brake pedal up to, 100 kilos, particularly coming into Monza. You have to train the upper body. Now, the upper body is probably the least because you've got power steering on the car, but you still need to be able to tolerate, bumps and the G-forces through the car. You train your core. Again, you're pretty well strapped in, but the core underpins the rest of your movement from the arms and also the neck. And then you have to train the neck. So there's not an area of strength that you don't do on the body. Then you have to be cardiovascular fit. On top of that, then you have to be able to take high intensities, because during the start and during overtakes, you can reach 90% of your maximal heart rate. So not only do they have to do
Wow.
yeah, exactly. So not only do they have to do long duration cardio, which they can burn, same calories as a half marathon runner, they then need to be able to tolerate, the sort of thing that a sprinter would do, if
All
you're
at once.
overtaking and your heart rate's going up that high. Um, and then you chuck in your jet lag and your heat training for certain races. So I think that in itself is the most unique thing. I think the toughest thing to do is to prepare for the heat, just because it is extreme. Like, it really is. We're talking like 50 degrees Celsius plus in the cockpit, and at races like Miami and Singapore, you can't sweat that out because it's so humid as well. So it adds a different component to it. The drivers can't cool themselves. They have a number of different microclimates because of the suit being fire retardant as well.
Gosh,
It's
Singapore
it's
just looks
impossible to follow.
so brutal this year.
Yeah. It was tough, and they got lucky this year with Miami because it was a bit cooler and not as humid.
Mhm.
But you talk to Max and some of the other drivers. First year of Miami is the toughest race they've ever done, in terms of the physicality, because you had the same humidity as Singapore. So we're talking about 80% humidity. But in Singapore, we race in the evening at night. So
Right.
yes, it's warm, but you haven't got the sun. Whereas in Miami, we raced at 3:30 p.m. Miami time. So you not only had the heat, the humidity, but you had a third way of heating the driver because of the solar heat,
Jesus.
from the sun as well. So that's pretty nuts.
Even just
Quite.
being a spectator in Miami is so warm. You could see people getting sunburned all over the place this year, and I can't imagine adding that to having a race suit on, being in the car, doing cardio. It's crazy. But
Yeah,
clearly you did a good job because Max seemed to handle Singapore quite well given
yeah,
Seem
how
to
we had
handle everything quite well.
yeah.
Yeah. No, we did. We handled Singapore well this year. Singapore was actually relatively easy to prepare for, because we come off the back of a European summer, and European summers the last few years have been mega hot. So you spend your summer break. We go out at midday, in the south of France, where it's like 35 to 39 degrees Celsius, and we go running in that heat. It's brutal. It's really hard, but 2 or 3 weeks of doing that, you're kind of ready for
You're
Singapore.
ready.
Miami's the hard one because Miami comes in May, and unless you go away and do some hot weather training in like Dubai or somewhere like that, we don't really have a way of preparing too much for it. We just have to, push the extreme of the training a little bit. So yeah, that for me is the toughest, I think, to prepare for.
So when you were saying summer break training, does that mean even when Max is on vacation, you would have to be with him so that he could be working out, staying on schedule and everything?
Yeah, so what we do is, F1 shutdown starts a week after, it's Belgium this year, and was last year. So final race before summer break is Belgium. F1 shutdown comes in a week after, and then there's 2 weeks where F1 is completely off, and that means for staff back at the factory, they can't work at all. The servers literally get turned off. For us, we immediately after that race, so from Sunday after Belgium, it always used to be Hungary, we're off for 2 weeks. So we go away, Max goes on his holiday, I go on my holiday, and we have 2 weeks. And then we come back for a 10-day training camp before we go to Holland or Monza, whatever it was. So yeah, we don't take the full time, but we still get 2 weeks just to rest and take a bit of a break.
And is that similar for the winter off season, or how does that training typically work? Do you get some time over the holidays to relax?
Yeah, so we get longer over the winter. So after the last race, sometimes you have testing after the last race in Abu Dhabi. We didn't do it this year, but so you might stay until sort of Tuesday, Wednesday in Abu Dhabi, still driving. and then you go off on your holidays. And we typically come back second week of January. So you end up getting kind of about 5-6 weeks of downtime. And we'll message a little bit, but there's no contact. There's no training. Maybe he does a little bit with some friends when he's on holiday or whatever. But other than that, that's your kind of pure time off, the only kind of break you get of the year. So we make sure we take it.
That's great.
But I think that's important as well for headspace and getting ready for the next season.
Yeah. And when you were saying that the heart rate is, can reach up to 90% of its max on overtakes at the start, are drivers and his max, are you measuring any of that while he's in the car? Like, is he wearing heart rate monitors or anything that gives you data on that sort of stuff?
Yes and no. So we can't put anything additional in the car. So we can't have them in heart rate monitors and stuff just because of regulations and safety and not having it sort of fire regulated and so on and so forth. They do have a biosensor in the glove, but we aren't privy to that data. So that data is there for the medical team, the F1 medical team. So and they'll be monitoring it in the medical car.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah, it's more so if there's a big crash and you've got multiple drivers involved. For a one medical car, they kind of need to know where to go first, so they can kind of see who's still
make sure everybody's okay.
A better condition. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so jumping back to your background for a bit, how did you get to be an F1 performance coach? It's such a fascinating career. We know you have a master's in sport and exercise science, but how do you jump from that to being Max Verstappen's personal trainer?
Yeah, it's I guess it's just an interesting journey. Years of work in sport, which kind of positioned me to get a little lucky in terms of just the connections and the network you make. But so just from an education point of view, I did a degree in sport and exercise science, and then my master's was actually in physiotherapy. And I did another master's in advanced physiotherapy after that, and some strength and conditioning qualifications. But I worked for years as a physio, working through the UK health system, and then into private practice in sport. Worked in professional football, worked with Team GB, so the Olympic team, basketball, and then moved from basketball to gymnastics. Was lucky enough to be involved with some athletes that won gold at the Olympics, which kind of put me on the map in kind of private practice physio. So I was working at a very good private practice performance centre on Harley Street, which is the biggest medical kind of street in London. And from there, you get to know a few people. You mix in the same sort of elite sport circles. And my name came up in conjunction with, someone who might be good, because what they were looking for at the time was someone that was dual qualified. So they were a physical therapist for the US, and someone who was also a strength and conditioning coach, because they needed that kind of that dual role. So my name came up, and I guess the rest is history. I met with a few people, and then went over to meet Max in Barcelona in 2019. He was there testing some GT Cup cars with his family, just about a week after the season had finished. Spent a few hours with him there, and
can't keep him out of the car, off the track.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. But we hit it off straight away, and as I said, the rest is history.
Yeah. So let's talk about Max. I mean, we all know he is one of the most talented F1 drivers in history. What makes Max so successful? And I guess the Red Bull organization overall, from your perspective, like, is there an X factor with him? And did you see that when you first met him?
Yeah, I think so. I was never really into F1 and, cars and stuff in general, but I think, having been around athletes and elite performers for a long time, you get a feel for someone, the way they hold themselves, the way they talk. There was certainly a destined to be one of the greats. what cuts him above the rest? I think a couple of things. I mean, you can talk about kind of performance aspects, but I think just a couple of things generally. His feel for the car is unlike, nothing I've ever heard listening to anybody else's kind of radio. And I haven't been privy to, some of the other, what I'd consider elite drivers in Formula One. So out of the 20 there, but, yeah, his feel for the car and the feedback is tremendous. And I listened to stories from him and his father, and he talks about how his father would send him out in a go-kart, and he would have changed something on the go-kart, and Max would have to tell him what it kind of changed when he came back in. But you can see, but you can see it now. He'll go out and there'll be the smallest change on that Formula One car. You're talking, 1,000 pieces that go into putting this Formula One car together, and he'll know it straight away.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's impressive. It really is. So there's that, and I think the second thing for me is people underlook the work ethic. They see the rocking up, going out on track, setting a fast time. Oh, it's Max. He's quick, but you wouldn't believe the amount of work that goes into learning the track, learning the lines, racing lines, watching the onboards, getting on the simulator and practicing. There's a reason why he rolled out in Saudi that first race in Saudi and just set purple lap after purple lap after purple lap, and it's because he's been practicing the track so much. And again, having been privy to some other drivers, it's different. It is. So yeah, impressive.
Definitely. I'm a huge Max fan, so I love hearing all of this, and I think you can definitely see the work ethic at Red Bull also generally as an organization. I think Christian Horner was just talking about this, about how kind of everyone has like a can-do mentality at Red Bull and nothing is impossible, and you can clearly see that being executed, which is amazing. So when you were talking about the day-to-day showing up to a race weekend, some of the warm-ups, the food, what is kind of a standard driver meal plan or workout for the race weekend? Because they have to do kind of reaction warm-ups, and then presumably you want them kind of eating consistent food no matter where they are.
Yeah, we pretty much follow a very similar meal plan for 23 race weekends of the year. You're right. You don't want to be trying anything different. You don't want to upset the stomach when he's getting in the car or anything like that. So you get enough of that just because you're traveling so much and visiting these different countries. So yeah, I guess on a typical day, it might be we turn up to track, omelette for breakfast. We kind of prehydrating, preloading electrolytes throughout the weekend. And then say it's a Friday, for example, you hit session 1. In between session 1 and 2, you're probably having some sort of recovery shake, which is high on protein, high on carbohydrates. Then you're into session 2, and post session 2, you'll have a high carb, high protein meal to help recovery. So it's it's not groundbreaking stuff. That meal might be some chicken, some rice, and some broccoli, and a bit of sauce on top. It's just making sure that it's well balanced. It's good food. They're used to that food, and you're getting the right kind of carbohydrates and protein to give enough energy and enough recovery, but also that you're not overeating and filling them up so that they're overweight on the scales for the engineers and the lap time.
That's hilarious. So we have talked a lot about the physical aspects of it, which I know there are many of those, but especially in F1, like you said, 23 race weekends, you're traveling all the time across the globe. I'm sure mental plays such a big role in that, and kind of sports psychology, mental health overall. How do you think about that when training someone like Max and, having to move around yourself throughout the year?
Yeah, I think having a good plan in place first and foremost is important. So we kind of plan out the year in advance. We split it into 4. So you kind of have the first quarter of the season, second quarter, summer break, third quarter, and then finally the fourth quarter and your off season. First quarter mainly being mostly kind of pre-season and stuff. And then within those kind of 4 blocks, you're trying to look to already kind of plan that bit of rest time. So mid-season, we'll also kind of take a week off from training and just to spend a bit of time apart or give some headspace or just give the body to some time to relax as well. And I think that's important. Every sort of 5-6 races to step away from it a little bit there. So planning it out, you obviously have your kind of your goal setting that you do as well in terms, and we make sure that each one of those kind of 4 quarters also marries up with that, and then from there on, you kind of know what to expect after that. So you look after. If you look after everything else, then that kind of mental well-being will be looked after. So if you've got a good physical fitness, that will underpin, a good mental health there. If you've got those rest breaks and those periods away from F1 and training included, then that's going to look after your mental health as well, because that gives you a bit of time to spend with friends, family, catch up with them, which is really important. And I'm sure we'll come to that, but it's a lot of people in F1 spend a lot of time away from family and friends, and they miss out on a lot of key moments in life because they're working the weekends. And it's true of most sports, and we do it because we love it. But there is that aspect to it as well. So it's important to make sure you find that downtime. And then just it's a reason why I had a job and why 20 other performance coaches have a job. We are there on a race weekend to create the optimal environment for that driver to flourish and do his thing. And that's how I always kind of describe my role, actually. I'm there to do everything so Max can just concentrate on racing. And if that means, sorting the meals or doing the laundry or, moving a bit of media and marketing around or just simple tasks, that's, it's not,
Can make a huge difference.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think what I'm trying to say is, people look at the kind of mental side of things. Oh, do you sit down? Do you go through imagery? Do you do visualization? Do you do all of this? Well, actually, no, just doing simple stuff like that creates the mental space for an elite athlete to do their thing. And of course, if there was things like that was needed, we can lean on that. But a lot of those other stuff go very much unlooked in terms of that mental well-being, and that can be the important thing.
And in terms of the travel and jet lag, so 23 races this season, we're up to 24 races. Some of the double headers especially are wild with time zones. We were in Vegas and we were getting lunch with a team. Lunch to us, it was 2 p.m. They were all eating breakfast, like their scrambled eggs and coffee. Everyone was flying straight to Abu Dhabi. So do you have any kind of creative ways that you combat jet lag, or what are kind of your approaches there?
Yeah, so I think Vegas was probably the most creative we had to be, and actually we were fine as well, which was good. But yeah, it was weird eating sushi and Mexican for breakfast at 2 p.m., which is what I was having. So yeah, Vegas was crazy, but we prepared for Vegas by doing like an opposite jet lag strategy because the timings were completely off. We prepared in the same way that we prepare going to Singapore or Japan or Australia rather than coming out to America.
Wow.
So that was my creative twist on Vegas, and actually everyone that followed the plan I set was okay.
So what was the plan?
I'll take that one.
What did you all do?
So normally, so there's a couple of key determinants to prepare for jet lag. You've got your light exposure, which is the key determinant for a shift in circadian rhythm, and you've got the timings that you sleep, which actually for me matters probably even more. Physiologically, it doesn't show that because light actually helps to shift the levels of melatonin and etc. But if you get your sleep pattern right, then that's a good way of doing it. And then the third kind of key thing within it is kind of like dosing caffeine when you need it to keep going, as it were. So for Vegas, so going to America on a normal time, you would, coming from the UK, you would start by 3 or 4 days before, getting up a bit later and going to bed a little bit later. So my normal get up time is 5 a.m. So coming to America 4 days before, I'd get up at, if I could, get up at 6 a.m. and go to bed an hour later. And then the next day, get up at 7 a.m., go to bed an hour later even still, and keep shifting that way. Going the other way, we get up earlier. So if we're going to Australia or going to Japan or Singapore, you're getting up at 3 a.m. for 3 or 4 days in a row and going to bed earlier so that you're ready to get onto that time zone. But for Vegas, we did it that way. So we started to get up earlier, so that we were on the times that we raced as opposed to American time.
Yeah. It required adjustment from Americans as well. I felt jet
Yeah.
lag just being going to a night race, which was crazy.
I think everybody did, but it wasn't just a night race, was it? It was like an early morning race.
Yeah, exactly.
People were getting at like 5 a.m., 6 a.m. It was crazy.
Especially that first night, which was not foreseen by anybody.
No, and that, to be fair, that could have been very dangerous. Seeing Max, seeing Checo, they were going out into that session. They were tired. They slept like an hour, 2 hours before even going out because it was like, we're not getting the decision. Go spend some time on your own. I can wake you up when we're ready to go. But even the team were done for. So yeah. For me, it probably wasn't the correct decision to hang it out there. We get it from the money point of view and the spectacle point of view. But if something had happened in that second session, that'd have been on them.
Totally. And so we know Max has spoken pretty publicly about how unsustainable this calendar is, increasing the races. What are your thoughts on that, especially from a performance coach perspective?
It is. I think I sit in a very good moment to comment on that because 24 races is unsustainable. A lot of teams now are starting to rotate staff. Red Bull aren't.
I don't really
moment,
see how else you can do it. But the drivers and performance coaches can't rotate.
Yeah, well, some obviously drivers can't, but some performance coaches do split the role. That's not for everyone. Both me and Max explored it for a couple of minutes, but we're very all-in people, so it would never work for us, which is absolutely fine. But yeah, but I think you're then only going to see maybe a deficit of performance. You think of how well that Red Bull team works and how well oiled it is. You start rotating staff in and out, and they race on, race off, or a couple of races on, couple of races off. The connection and the fluidity wouldn't maybe not be there. It is. It is a tough one.
Yeah. And when you think of kind of training an F1 driver, are there any misconceptions or things that you have to kind of correct people on when they hear what you do or think about what goes into training an F1 driver? We talked about how it's so much more physically demanding than a lot of people realize.
Yeah, I think at the start it was exactly that. It was kind of, what do you do for an F1 driver? They just sit in the car, don't they? Oh, maybe they get a bit of neck pain, but what are you doing? I think that's changed actually in the 4 years that I've been involved. People are definitely recognizing the amount of work that goes into what it takes to drive an F1 car. Hopefully I've been a little bit of a part of that in terms of sort of documenting the story along the way. Obviously Netflix helps with that as well because that often shows how the drivers train and gives a reason as to why. So yeah, when I started, it was, the misconception that, they're just driving a car. They're fine. The term I always like to use is driver athlete. So it's
I like that.
yeah, and you have to be an athlete to a point to get in the car. I couldn't get in the car and put my foot on the accelerator. My head would probably fall off. So it's so that was that. I guess now I think probably the only misconception now is, oh, they probably get a lot of neck pain. Actually, the biggest amount of pain that you tend to see in Formula One drivers is lower back pain, just because of the position that they sit in and the shock and the vibrations and the forces that
Especially
go
with
through the lower
porpoising.
back. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. And some of these street circuits
Yeah.
are pretty bad for bouncing those cars. So yeah, they can be pretty stiff.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we get that even just as fans and podcasters in F1 of like, don't they just drive around in circles? Like, what's the big deal here?
Yeah.
But there's a lot more to it than that. So you announced that you are leaving F1. So what made you decide to go that path, and what's next for you?
Yes. It definitely wasn't an easy decision. I have a little girl. She's 2.5,
Oh,
and
sweet.
yeah, she's a lot more knowing now. Why are you going away, Daddy?
Where's
Where are you going,
daddy?
Daddy? Yeah, exactly. And me and her mum are separated, so it becomes harder and harder to kind of see her and be with her. So, I'd go away on a triple header. I'm lucky because I get to come back for a day or so in between, but I could be away 6 weeks and only see her 3 times. And for me, I want to be there and I want to be sort of a dad for her. So that was kind of the major decision, first and foremost. And then I'm lucky that I've got a few projects work-wise going on. I have quite a successful, I guess, online kind of health and fitness business at the moment. I run it for an app.
Yeah, we checked it out. It's very cool.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so people can come on board and have physio and injury rehabilitation, or they might just want to come on board and get fit. And I have a real mixture of people who are injured and in pain, or people that just want to kind of get fit and lose a bit of weight. And now that I'm a bit more available, I've got a few junior drivers on there as well, and
Nice.
doing a bit of work with some junior drivers both on the app and a little bit in person as well. So I think in a nice position now where I can hopefully pass a bit of knowledge down and help some younger generations on the way to sort of their journeys, whilst also spending a bit more time at home for myself. So the travel definitely won't be over. I have a few other athletes that I work with as well, Red Bull athletes and so on and so forth. So, yeah, you'll still see me getting on planes.
Maybe
Just
not 370 of them.
yeah, exactly. Just maybe I'll be away 100 days a year rather than 200 days a year.
That's a big difference. It's a big
It's a big
difference.
difference. Yeah. But it's a nerve-wracking time for myself, but exciting at the same time. And yeah, I'll certainly miss it, but I'll be supporting from afar.
Yeah, we can't wait to follow along for what's next for you and all of your athletes. So, we
Thank you.
like to wrap up with kind of a rapid fire or hot take. So, a couple questions. Do you have a favorite race or a favorite circuit?
Favorite race or favorite circuit? Favorite race, just in general, is probably Austin.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of coming to the States anyway. Always have done, as you can see from our previous chat about what sports I'm into and what
Yeah.
sports I like. But just the whole feel for Austin is cool. It's a cool city, lots going on. The track is good as well. It always gives us a good race. It's quite nice to run apart from turn one. And also, it's not too far from the middle as well. That if it takes a long time to get in and out, that's probably one of the biggest pains for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, Austin would be right up there.
We love that race. Austin's a great one. How
Most
about
people do.
yeah. How about least favorite double or triple header?
Least favorite double or triple header. I'm probably going to upset a few people with this because this is a very personal one, but I don't really like going to Singapore and Japan. It's just not really for me. And people love Singapore and Japan, amazing
People
track and
rave about
amazing
it.
fans. Yeah. And and in moments it is, but for me, I don't really like to travel there, and you just feel very kind of far away. The time zone
Yeah.
doesn't work to kind of speak to people at home and stuff. So, yeah, I always struggled with them.
Do you have any hot takes or predictions for F1 in 2024? Either Red Bull, other teams, anything you got?
Hot takes. Max wins again, hopefully, but that's
I
not much of
Not
a
very
hot take.
hot.
It's not very hot.
I always say something about Max winning, and Tiggy and Chess are like, "That's not a hot take. Please stop."
Not a hot take. It definitely isn't a hot take. It won't be as close, for sure. Who is gonna make it not so close? I don't know. My money would still be on Mercedes to be there or thereabouts, but McLaren and Ferrari are supposedly making good gains as well. But yeah, no, it's hopefully all the guys and girls at Red Bull are celebrating at this time or next end of next year at least.
Exactly. Or sooner, because this year you guys won like halfway through the season almost.
Very true. Yeah, I'll take that as well.
Yeah. We love to ask everybody this favorite hometown recommendation, whether that's a restaurant, a bar, a park, anything. What do you love to do at home?
What do I have to do at home? Oh, good question. I'm like a 30-minute train ride to central London. So
Nice.
I like just to go into town, you know, walk around the streets of London, just stop off in, it doesn't even matter what restaurant, nice little side street restaurant, spend a bit of time in a London pub, really chilled, and just, spend that with sort of friends and family. So, yeah, I think I'm always the same. Every city I go, it could be New York, it could be London, wherever. I like to do more what the locals do than go and see the tourist stuff. So when I go to London, it's, just walk around some random streets and pop into to places and kind of do it as a Londoner would.
Well, you have to let us know if you're ever in New York, and we can definitely show you some non-tourist activities.
Sounds good to me. I will.
Awesome. So I think that wraps it up. I guess maybe one last question is, do you have any favorite exercises or, specific workouts that you would recommend someone do to train like an F1 driver? I know you focus on that a bit with your kind of company right now, but any specific exercises?
Yeah, sure. So, funny you should say that. I do have a standalone 3-month program on my website, which is kind of mimics how an F1 driver would train. So that's cool. But I think if you really want to give it a go, try some neck planks.
Oh God,
So
that sounds scary.
The photos, but I don't know how you actually do it.
So. Well, there's two ways. The one to try, which is not going to hurt your neck straight away, is to lean the back of your head on a chair or a sofa, and then come up onto your legs. So you're a bit stronger going backwards than you are to the side, so that one won't hurt you too much. But I remember first year I was filmed some videos of me doing a side neck plank, and I lasted like 3 seconds or something. I had neck pain for about a week after. So do be careful, whoever's listening to this.
Don't try this at home, kids.
Yeah, don't try this at home.
How long can Max hold a neck plank?
Depends on the time of the season. If we come into the first week of pre-season, then it's going to be a lot shorter, but come the end of the season, you can going into extension, sit there for easily a minute.
Wow.
We wouldn't test any longer than that. So.
Well, Bradley, thank you so much. This has been an amazing conversation. We learned a ton, and we are wishing you all the best for your next steps.
Thank you for having me. It's been a really nice chat.